This program is designed and produced by the community with the support of Cogeco TV.
Hello, I'm Mayor Walter Sendzik, and thank you for joining us on Our Home with Mayor Sendzik. So this is the second last show before the annual holiday show, and it is an opportunity to talk about and what's going on in our community and highlight some of the positive aspects of institutions and organizations that are having such an impact on our community. And that's really what the show of Our Home with Mayor Sendzik's about. It's talking to people, it's showing the stories telling the stories that maybe haven't been told before. It's shining a light on organizations and community groups that are doing positive work in St. Catharines. And so today's a really special episode, and it's special because we have an individual who has gone through a journey. And the journey has taken this individual into the healthcare system of St. Catharines, Niagara, and one institution in particular, the Hotel Dieu Shaver Rehabilitation Center. And joining us today, we have John Rollo, who's a good friend of mine. Disclaimer is that his son is one of my best friends.
Yeah.
And so John Rollo is an author, and he has penned his first book, Baby Steps. And the book is about a journey. It's about a journey of a person who beat all the medical odds to live and walk again. And I got to see the journey through the eyes of your son Dell and Lisa, who are good family friends of ours. And we saw it in a very personal way, and it was very obviously up close. And seeing the challenges that you had gone through. Now, as a bit of a backstory, John, born and raised in Windsor, won't hold that against you, worked in the automotive industry, so understands manufacturing, where manufacturing has come from. But then he bought his own company and was very successful at building the company. He's strong entrepreneurial spirit. And after a number of years of running a company and building a company, and John knows the trials and tribulations of working hard with his wife, Kathy, and having the opportunity to sell the company and then enjoy the next stage of your life. And so as anyone who wants to go and check out John's life, go to Facebook and check out John Rollo, and you'll see how he sees life, even in terms of the traveling. And so you really explored the world, you traveled a lot. And then you had a bit of a problem with your back. So, John, let's start with, you had an issue with your back. You've done extensive traveling. What was the condition that really started this journey?
Well, it was spinal stenosis in my back that caused the problem, and I had that for about 30 years.
So is that something that, like, how did that come about?
It probably, according to the experts, it turns out that people of my age, let's say about 20 years ago, it was one of the most common or accelerated form of disability that was hitting us. And it's an increased calcification of the spinal area, and the calcification eventually closes in on the nerve bundles that are in your spinal column. So it can affect you in the shoulders or wherever the different nerves are coming out. In my case, it was in the lumbar spine.
Okay.
And the bundle that came out there goes right down to your toes. So I was experiencing a lot of pain for quite a while. And the cure, or the assistance, there's no real cure, I suppose, but the assistance would be a major spinal surgery, which I did avoid for years and years and years, waiting, figuring medicine would come up with something that was less invasive.
Okay.
Okay, and that's where it brought me in 2008. I had to have what they call, let's say, keyhole surgery. So I was able to have a surgery with a very small incision on my spine, and they did it through microscopes and everything, and they were able to clean off 4 vertebrae of the calcium that was causing most of the problem. After that surgery, which was only like a 2-day stay in the hospital, it was in and out very quick. The surgeon said he was unable at L5-S1, which is where your tailbone basically jumps into your spinal area, that he was unable to clean because of extreme calcification. And he told me that within 5 years, I would probably have to have the major surgery.
Okay.
And it was almost 5 years to the day that I hit the wall and couldn't move. It was very difficult. The pain has been my partner for 35 or more years, chronic pain. So I've experienced all the different types of solutions for pain, and none of them really work when it's chronic pain. The best thing is to get your head going in some meditation to try and counter that. So anyways, 2013 is when I hit that wall, and I had the spinal surgery, and I woke up after it. I can remember I didn't have pain in my leg. First time in 35 years. So it was a success, you know. And went to bed that night, and next morning, I guess I woke up to die. And
so that's the start of the journey, is you were in a Toronto hospital?
Yeah, Toronto General. Toronto Western for the surgery. And when my heart stopped and I was having a fatal heart attack, they threw me in an ambulance, and it took about 3 minutes to get me to Toronto General, where the heart specialists are. And luckily, I had one of the top surgeons in the world kind of meet me at the door and said, I'll take this one.
So you were able, you go from the back surgery, just to put it in context for the folks, your journey started with the back surgery, and then you had a heart attack the next day.
Yeah.
And then from the heart attack, you were in the hospital, they had to do surgery.
Yeah, and the surgery was I kept failing, you know, my heart. I don't know how many times my heart stopped, because I was out of it, obviously. And even after the surgery, I was fighting everything, and I was groggy, so they induced a coma, and I was in coma for 3.5 weeks. And, you know, coming out of the coma was an incident of, well, yes, it was joy, you know, because I was alert. My family, which, you know, Del and Dawn, my sister, his sister, and Kathy, they had 20 minutes to talk to me. So in that 20 minutes, I discovered that I'd had the heart surgery. What?
You didn't,
I didn't know.
You didn't know that?
I thought I was coming out of the spinal surgery.
Okay.
You know, and I'm there, and they said, yeah, like Del said, he was at the footboard, and he said, take a look. You know, I looked down, and there was a scar, completely healed. Like, you know, it wasn't like a new red flaming thing. It was completely healed. So I said, what the heck? What's going on? They said, you had that over 3 weeks ago. Okay. And during the course of that 20 minutes, I've discovered a whole lot of stuff that had happened to me, including I looked down at one point and I saw my feet, and they were the color of your shoes. And I said, what the, you know, I used another colorful word in there, but Dale said, you're going to lose your feet, Dad. And then they had to leave because the 20 minutes was up. So you come out of a coma and you just find out all of this stuff that went on. And our system didn't provide any clinical psychologist to come in and kind of get your brain used to you got a new world to deal with, you know?
Right.
So that night was probably the worst night in my life. Anger, crying, you can name it, all the emotions you can think of when you just discovered what happened. But finally, early in the morning, I realized that I was still alive, and that was a good thing.
Right.
And it was at that point that I said to myself, okay, you've had your grieving. This night was your night of grieving for your loss. Now you got to work on trying to be positive and face this thing and tackle the new world you've been launched into.
So that was the start of your journey, and you had more steps to take.
Yeah.
And so through the next couple of weeks, what happened?
Yeah. I was then in Toronto General being brought about to make sure everything was okay. They had to do further tests on the heart to make sure everything's okay. My head, but mechanisms within the body had begun to fail. Like I couldn't lift my hand up or hold anything, either hand. I couldn't swallow. I couldn't hardly talk because it was all raspy in there. So I had to go through a lot of rehabilitation. Well, Dell at that time, he knew that he had been on Facebook through this ordeal as well as Don. And he just said, my phone in the meantime, Kathy had taken over and she wasn't going to give it up now. So she got used to the smartphone world. And so Dell went across the road and he picked up a smartphone, threw it at me in bed and said, "You answer the Facebook now."
Wow.
And so I picked this thing up, it fell out of my hands, and it became a rehabilitation tool in itself because I had to use my hands to do something. Every morning, 4:30 in the morning, the nurses would come in to either inject somebody or pills. So you don't get a full night's sleep when you're in the hospital. And I would sit there and the depression would start to close in. And that's when I would then work on having a positive statement to come up with.
Right.
And every morning, I put out a positive statement on Facebook, thanking God, thanking my friends, thanking the world that I was still alive, and encouraging people to think positive, think positive.
Yeah.
Okay, who was I talking to? I thought, writing this out, but really I'm talking to myself.
Right.
Because I had to make myself come out of this hole, because if you look down at it, what are your choices, You got good or evil, you got black or white, or bright and dark. Mm-hmm. Why not choose the better one?
Right.
That was the way I approached it all. So every time I was going to go into this sad or depressive state, I had to work my mind to come up with something positive, something that was going to make me move forward and not backwards.
And then you had the major operations on your legs?
Yeah, that happened basically down here because I was... The way the system works, you're in an acute hospital.
Right.
So the surgeons, they do what they have to do to get your body back into a working order of some sort. Doesn't mean it's going to be the same as when you entered the hospital. Right. Okay, but they get to the point where they can't do anymore and they need a bed for somebody else who needs that kind of service. Okay, what do? They put you up for bid to the rehab hospitals and say, we've got a patient that needs to go to rehab. And that's what it is. It's like a bid system. And I was pushing at that time to come here. And I think I even contacted you at one point because of your position. I think at that time you were on the board there. Yeah. And I said, I want to be at Shaver so I can be close to the family. Yeah. And that Shaver wasn't going to accept me because they thought I was too serious. I should be staying in an acute hospital. But however, when the acute hospital says you're no longer acute, it's done. You've got to go to the next level. And finally, enough people maybe got behind me because I contacted everybody I knew down here to get the admissions at Shaver to accept me. And they did. And I went to Shaver, and the feet, the whole process, they didn't want to do anything with the feet until at least 3 months after the heart. They didn't want to, because it's a major surgery as well. And so I was being treated. They had to be taken care of in a different way than they were used to there at that hospital. But I took the therapy because I had to get everything going again. Because again, my hands, I was just getting them mobile again. My voice, I had to go to speech therapy there.
And so that's where I think the journey really started to take that turn. And after the break, I want to come back and talk about how that journey led to the book. So when you come back, we're going to be hearing more from John as he continued on his journey and through the efforts of the Hotel du Shaver and what they were able to do to work with John to ensure that there was a positive outcome that also led to a very inspirational book. So look forward to having you come back. All right, welcome back. And now we're going to be embarking on the journey of John's story from the hospital in Toronto to a rehabilitation center here in St. Catharines, the Hotel du Shaver Rehabilitation Center, and how that was also a catalyst for your new book, which is, it's called Baby Steps, and it's Let's Take a Walk, and it's so fitting because that's a photo at your cottage.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful cover. But this was also the journey that took you through the Hotel du Shaver as well. So it's from the start of your experience. Tell us a bit about the experience at the Hotel du Shaver and what that was like as someone who was trying to get their life back. Because I think that's what the Shaver stands for. It's not just about rehabilitation, it's about giving someone their life back.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, when you arrive at Shaver, it is an old hospital. And you go into it and say, well, is this really where I want to be? Right. Well, the staff compensates for the surroundings. It's tight surroundings. I mean, I was in a room sometime with 4 beds in it that was designed for 2 persons, right. You know. But anyways, beside all that, the staff, I don't care. I was admitted 5 times during the process because at a certain point you have to leave and go home. Okay. And then all of a sudden, one foot would finally be at the point it had to be amputated. So what you do is you go to the new hospital in Niagara, and it was very good also, by the way. They do their job, and I got the leg cut off. And after that surgery, you're only there a couple of days, you're right back into Shaver as a new admission again. Okay. And so you go into another room, and at that point, it's almost like a graduation series at Shaver. You're into the room where they have to do the care and the rehab, and they're driving you to become self-sufficient. Right. And as you become more self-sufficient, you move to the East Wing, and it's like you're at the point of graduation, and it's happy times because you're going to go home. You even get weekend passes, which is kind of nice, you know. But all the way along, the staff is just so good. You got the care nurses who are in where you're sleeping, and then when you go to the physio part of it, they have every need you want. It's eye, ear, nose, throat, doesn't matter. They got somebody there that's going to help you through it. Right. They had to get me to drive again. I drive in a hand control vehicle, and to do that in the province, my current license is taken away, right. And I have to earn the right to go out on the highway again. And they have special occupational therapists who help you along that trail. And it's not an easy trail because they're not just testing mechanical capabilities. They want cognitive intelligence and everything else because it's a very important thing to get behind the wheel of a car. You got to be capable. Right. And so they make you, if you're having trouble, they find out what the trouble is and help you through it.
So that's the physicality of the rehab. But there's a spiritual side, and you touched on it before the break. There were some dark moments.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. You know, you had lost both your legs. You were a very active individual. You traveled the world with your wife, Kathy. And here you were at a rehabilitation center. And the physical side, you can get your head around. But what was the psychological, spiritual side like?
Well, you know, the thing about it is also that the other, if you want to call them inmates or whatever you want to call them, you know, they're all there and they're going through their process, whether it's stroke, you know, amputations, other motor disabilities, mm-hmm. and everybody's taken their own degree of physio. And you go back to the room and the nurses are busy, that's sure. You know, they have chaplains that come around and talk to you and they help you out. And Sister Louise is one of my angels. I mean, right. I have a whole army of angels, and she's one of them because she not only helped me, but she helped my wife. Because my wife would leave the room sometimes when there were pain moments and I was struggling, and it would cause her to have grief as well. Right. And Sister Louise bumped into her, and she knew right away, what's going on, Kathy? Come on, let's go have a coffee. So it's very much like family there. You know, and that's the nice thing, and that helps in the healing process. And then the interaction between the patients. I would go down the hall because you can roam around, and I had my wheelchair, and I had my own new wheelchair, which was really hot. It's called a Hawk. And so I got my wheelchair and go down, but some people were in their very depressed state, and their heads down, and that, well, I'd take my wheelchair and cozy up beside them. No action, I'd cozy some more and rub a little bit, and finally they'd lick his head up and said, "What? What do you want?" And I'd say, "I'm John. What's your name?" And we started this kind of interaction with some people in the hallway. And I'd say, "How's your wheelchair?" "What do you mean, how's my wheelchair?" I said, "I bet you mine's faster than yours. Let's go for a race down the hallway." "You can't race down the hallway," he'd say. I said, "Oh yeah, why not? They can shoot us." And that's why here we brightened the thing up. And the interaction between each other. At lunchtime, we went to a general open dining room and sat with some friends that you make. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, what's happening is the nurses are observing you. They're watching to see if you're capable of feeding yourself, so that at some point they're going to make a decision whether they allow you to go home, right, or they're going to send you to another home.
Right.
So it's a very familial place, but boy, are they supportive,
And through your rehabilitation, you also continued your Facebook posting and life affirmations and getting people to see the other side of the equation.
Yeah.
And let's talk about your book. So, Baby Steps. It's time-stamped, and what I mean by that is it's like a diary. There's dates in here.
Yeah.
And so how did the book come together? Was it a series of posts that you did online? And tell us about the book.
It's very close to being a journal of my time, regardless of which hospital I was in. I was in the process of having to cope with that long space when there's nobody around. And rather than slip into darkness, I would work on the Facebook, became my communication tool. I ended up getting followers, or friends as they call it in Facebook, all over the world.
Yes,
all of a sudden, somebody from Australia, somebody from wherever. But every day in the book, the way it's read in italics for each date is what was actually in my Facebook page. I retrieved the data and used that as the thing. But behind that positive statement, and some of them I don't know where the words came from, but I know they came out of me, I would write then why my soul drove me to write those words. So some of it was dark and some of it wasn't, but the whole idea of Facebook, so chronologically it takes me through. Even I still do it today. I did yesterday another one.
You have one here from September 25th, 2013. It says, "Wednesday, a great day, lots to do every morning, 9 a.m. therapy. So I will post a message when I have a tad more time. Meanwhile, get off your collective butts and go get them. Gotta go. Check back later. Love you all." So that was your post, and then you added, "The therapy sessions were good for me. Yes, painful, but it's better than lying in bed worrying." What's that Nike slogan? Just do it. So it's about affirmation. It's about showing people that how you were thinking on that morning, but then adding to that message that you posted to your friends and family and the world to give it a bit more context.
Yeah.
And so what does this book mean to you as John Rollo? You're the author. Why did you write it?
Yeah. I was encouraged because of all the Facebook posts, and people would just make notes. They make comments. "You should write a book. You should write a book." After I came home and I was no longer going into the hospital care on a frequent basis, more and more people kept saying, "Write a book, write a book." And I did. It took me 3 years to write it because of the way I am. I've never written a book, so I had to investigate what it is all about. What's the publishing industry like, and how should I do it? And eventually, it seemed in today's world, there are so many people able to write a book because of the digital age we're in. And the publishing houses have reverted or maybe launched into a new era for them, and having people self-publish using their expertise as a tool that you can buy. So you have to pay for people to guide you through it and all that. And it was very helpful. They're still there for me. Mm-hmm. But they didn't really do anything as far as changing what I wanted to talk about.
Right. And so it's not a short book. It's over 200 and almost 250 pages, but it's about your journey. And when you finished writing it and you launched it, what was the feeling that you had?
The whole thing was very cathartic for me, writing. And I did have two beta readers, two ladies that are local in the community, and I'm sure you know them, but I knew them and I knew their capabilities, and they both were different, so they could tell me a little bit about how the book felt to them. And we had a meeting with my wife and the two ladies and myself, and immediately the both of them almost blurted out, "You talk too much." I was too verbose, they said, you know. And so that day I went back and I stripped about 25,000 words out of it to make it more to the point, and got rid of some of that. So what I'm left with is a journal of me. I bare my soul. Sometimes one person even said maybe you told a little too much, but that's the way it is, you know.
Well, you have wonderful photos of your family in here. So it's a journey that you've taken, and again, it's Baby Steps by John Rollo. Let's take a walk. And where can people get this book of inspiration and courage and affirmation?
Yeah, I have a web page, stepswithrollo.com.
Stepswithrollo.com.
And on it is a bookstore page, and in it you give links to all the places that you can do it. So you can get it through that contact, so you're going into an ebook type purchase. Okay. Store purchase, it's fairly recent, you know, so the way the publishing industry works, there's a fall catalog that goes out. I'm in the fall catalog to the buyers. Right. Hopefully the buyers are going to do it, and I'm hoping that a place like Chapters Indigo will have it soon, you know.
So I encourage you folks at home to check it out. Go to the website and look up the book. It is a book that's full of wisdom. I'm going to say spirituality. It's affirmation. It's a journey of courage. And John, as a friend, I can't be more proud of you in capturing and inspiring others, and the success that you've had on your journey. So thanks for taking the time to come on my show, and look forward to continuing to follow your journey on Facebook, because it didn't stop with you leaving the hospital, and you've continued to blossom, and you and your wife continue to travel, which is a wonderful testament to both you and Kathy. So thank you very much for being on my show today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
With that, we'll see you at the Christmas show, which will be coming up in the next episode.